But that does not mean that those people can get that wrong. And the
Hmm.
final voice to make sure that it stays right, is basically the church councils, which,
Hmm.
some have actually condemned limited atonement.
Okay. Since you said that, which council would you say has condemned limited atonement?
I'd say the Council of Arles in 473 or 475, the Council of
Mhm.
Query, and I also believe the Council of Florence
Okay. Um, Let me take. You say Council of Florence.
and Council of Query
How do you
with
spell
God,
Query?
huh?
How do you spell
Uh,
Query?
oh, that's tricky.
Mm,
Quieyry.
okay. So I'll have to look into that later. But
And that
while
was
we're there,
condemned by John Shock.
right. So while we're there, let's talk about the Synod of Arles, which is we don't know exactly when it happened. Our estimate is one is in 475 to 480 is when it's estimated to have happened. So we don't even have a good accurate date of when this event took place. So
We,
my question would be: are you familiar that we have little to no information about what exactly was discussed?
Not only am I slightly familiar with that, but I'm also familiar with the fact that we don't know the exact date that Jesus was born, and
Mm-hmm.
yet
Yeah.
we don't give that a hard time at all.
Right, but because we know that at least it happened, but the thing is, we know that at least this council happened, which is what I'm not denying. What I'm denying is that what you're claiming about what's condemned at this council is there because, according to uh, someone who's gone by the name of
Faustus. Faustus.
yeah, we have Faustus, who the only one that provides information, and a certain bishop called Karl Joseph von Helfel, who is a Roman Catholic bishop of Rothenburg and a professor of theology at the University of Tübingen. He formal at least, because this was a past guy. Says in his History of the Councils of the Church from the Original Documents, Volume 4, he says, unfortunately we know very little of him, referring to Lucidus, or of the two Gallican synods, referring to Arles and Lyons, who sat in judgment upon him, and this little only from Faustus of Ries, who himself was not orthodox on the doctrine of grace, and in opposition to Lucidus was entangled in semi-Pelagian error. So the only thing we know is from Faustus, who himself was eventually considered a heretic thanks to the Council of Orange in 529. So in my opinion, do you think that Faustus's words, which is the only description we have of this council of what is claimed to be a limited atonement being condemned, would you say that his words are very reliable compared to if any others were at the council?
The reason why I still say that this is reliable is
Mm-hmm.
because, for one, you don't have any church fathers or anyone in all of history saying that guy was wrong, he got it
Mm-hmm.
wrong. The second reason is because even though that there is little evidence, as the Roman Catholic had pointed out, it's still evidence nonetheless, and
Mm-hmm.
still there is no evidence out there that's saying he was wrong. There is no
Okay.
contrary evidence. A third
Mm-hmm.
reason is because of the reason as to why we shouldn't trust him. I find
Okay.
it weak because even though this man's theology could be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore we could assume that he wasn't in the church because his theology was wrong,
Mm-hmm.
we're also going to assume that he was just wrong about citing a council. If that's the case, we could just go ahead and say, well, maybe we shouldn't trust Peter either because his theology was a little wrong when it got to the point where Paul had to basically,
Mm-hmm.
rebuke him to his face.
Right.
So, so I mean, like I said, and there's other things that I could say, but as far as I'm concerned, it said that the church condemned it. No one went against it. It was also condemned again by Gottschalk in 529.
Hmm.
So, I mean, or not by Gottschalk, but he was the guy that also held to it, and that was
Hmm.
condemned by
Right.
requiring 859.
So I guess my next question is that was this bishop Faustus is he considered in Roman Catholic or Eastern Orthodoxy uh, under the name of a saint? Is he considered such?
I'm not sure, and I would say probably most likely not.
Okay, and that would give a good thing based on what I'm seeing is that he was a defender of semi-Pelagianism, that it was a heresy, correct?
Yes, it was.
And if it's going on that he hasn't been given that title, but yet when throughout his life he's been teaching all these things, don't you find it interesting that he kept to this heresy, unlike Peter, who repented and recanted of his heresy till his death? Then would you think that makes it a little different between Peter and Faustus?
Yes, we can semantically kind of show those differences, but I
Hmm.
think by the end of the day, that's very nice. But I think by the end of the day, we're still just going to go back down to, you
Hmm.
know, does his theology discredit what he has reported?
Right.
And then, um,
Hmm. Well, the thing is that once again, he of course is the only reporter, and that his claim is obviously going to, of course, be in a strong disagreement because he is a heretic who finds this stuff ridiculous. I mean, how do you, the same thing can be seen with Arius, but